Hi everyone, welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how you can copy data, in this case table, from one database to the other using what we call AWS Data Migration Service. But the question or the scenario is, when do you need to do this? Okay, when do you need to copy data or replicate data from one database to the other, and what is the point? So there might be a case that, let's say you have a data analytics team or database team who always constantly want to do what we call data analytics. By that, they want to do like a dashboard, they want to have some business intelligence or machine learning just to access your data and give that feedback to your company. In this case, they can either probably work on the existing production database directly, or what you can do for better isolation and for better performance is to isolate this. By that, I mean have a separate database whereby the data engineering team or the analytics team can constantly use for their dashboard of for their business intelligence activities. So what you do is you will copy the production database into a replica or a standby or a standalone database. So what we are going to use here is we're going to leverage on AWS Aurora as our production database, and then we're going to create a standby or a standalone DB, and then we're going to copy the data from the production database, in this case the Aurora, to the standalone. In this case, that will be our target, and we are going to leverage on what we call data migration service. Okay, right. So the data migration service is the actual engine that is going to orchestrate everything. Within that, we're going to create what we call an instance or what we call replication instance. Within that replication instance, we will create what we call a task. So replication task. The replication task is the one that is connecting the dots. Okay, and in there too, we're gonna create an endpoint where we can connect to our source database, in this case, the one which is actually live or the existing one. And then we're also going to create an endpoint to the target or the one that the data analytics team will be working on. Okay, so this will be the end-to-end connection. Okay, so this will help, like I said, for proper isolation, and it will help your company to kind of segregate production database from the one that the analytics team will be working on. So let's quickly go on the console, and then I will show you what we need to do. So let me go to my AWS console, and then within my AWS console, I will show you the database that we have. Okay, so I have this database. Imagine this is the production database that are being used by your client. Okay, so what we want is to copy the data inside of the database. In this case, we have a table of users in here. We want to copy them to the standalone one. For now, we don't have any standalone one. We will create one. But what we will do is to show you what data is inside of this database, and then we will take it from there. So what I want to do, for me to connect to the DB, I have what we call a Bastion host or a jump server. So this DB is in a private subnet. For me to have access to it or connect to it, I need to place what we call a Bastion host in the same network. Remember, resources within the same network can communicate with each other. So the Bastion host will be placed in my public subnet. I will jump on the public um, Bastion host, which has access to the database, and I'll be able to connect to the database. So let's do it. So let me show you my um, Bastion host. If you're not sure how to create it, I've done a separate video where I've created a Bastion host and then connected to a database. That's a separate video altogether. You can go and watch it. Probably the link will be somewhere up in the screen. Yeah. So let me go to EC2. Let me try and then um, open another tab for EC2, and then I'll find my Bastion host. Go here, go to the running instance, and then this is my running instance. It's just a empty box. I'm jumping on it to connect to the database. Jump server. Okay, so I'll go to connect. Okay, the reason why I'm going to connect, I'm going to use what we call session manager. Again, I have a video that covers all this, so I'm not going to go into this more detail. So let me connect. So I'm going to connect to the DB. Let me remove this tab just to prevent some of the stuff. Okay, cancel that. Okay, right. So I'm in here in the Bastion host, and I want to connect to the DB. What I need to do is to come here to the DB. Let me click on the DB and then just see what connect, get the connection string. Give it a second. So let me get the connection string from the DB. So what I would say is connectivity and security, and then code snippets, and then I'm copying the connection string here all the way to the username with the password. Ignore the SSL mode. You can ignore that for now. All you need to copy is that. Go to my Bastion, and then what I need to do is to place it here, and then I'll press enter on that, and then I'm going to provide my password, and I'm in. All right, so I'm inside this database. Okay, MySQL for now. Let me show you how many database we have. So literally, for me to create the data or the table inside the database, literally, I follow ChatGPT to give me something that I can create a table with, and this is what I did. Create a table, blah blah blah. Give me all that, and I inserted these users into the DB or into the table. So let me show you what is inside of that. Okay, so let me grab that, and then what I would say is, okay, where is that? So here, show databases, enter, and this is the database I created. So I'm gonna switch to this DB. Okay, so again, all you need to do is to say use, and then you provide the name of your DB. Basically, I'm showing you what table that we are going to copy. So I'm gonna switch to that DB. When I'm inside the DB, can you see here? I've switched you to that DB. I want to see the table inside of that database. So again, we say show table, and then when we show the table, you'll be able to see. So show table. So we got this table called users. Yeah. So table called users. And then I want to list everything inside of that user table. List all of them. Basically, just going to list all these users so we can see them. Yeah. Right. I'll grab that and then come back here again. Then I'll say select all. And this is the list of the table we have. Right. Imagine this is what the data analytics team need for them to do their dashboard, business intelligence, and so on and so forth. This is what they need to work with. But we don't want them to constantly be pulling and working, reading from this database, okay? Because this is production database. We want to isolate this database from the data analytics team, but then they need access to this database. This is what they are looking for. So what we are trying to do here is to copy this data to another database so they can use that standalone DB going forward. Okay, and what we can do is we can also set up what we call continuous replication. Any data or any changes that will happen here will continuously be pushing or populated into that standalone or the target DB. Okay, that is the idea. So let's go to the database. Again, we're going to create our standalone DB. Okay, and then what we need to do is to um, pull the data from the source to the standalone DB, right? But before you can do that, in your existing database, okay, the one that is production, the one that you want to copy the data from, you need to make sure it settings what we call parameter group. Okay, you have allow, this is MySQL, so Aurora MySQL, you need to ensure, let's open that, see, Aurora MySQL, you need to ensure that it has what we call, it's like bin log format. This will help in the replication. You need to allow that in the setting. So if we go into here and go to the configuration, if you look in here, we have a default. Okay, we have a default DB, what we call the cluster parameter group. Which one? Yeah, cluster parameter group. This cluster parameter doesn't have that, and you cannot edit it. Okay, you cannot this is default, you cannot really edit it. So we need to kind of swap or change and create our own what we call parameter group. I've already created one, and I will show you what goes into it. So if you go to parameter groups here, all you need to do is to create parameter group and then give it a name. Okay, so when you give it a name, you have something like that. Okay, so let's pick this one and I'll show you what you need to change. If let's say, let's pick that one. Okay, click into that, and then what I wanted to show you, so you can go edit, and what you are looking for is the bin log where you format. This is the one you need. Make sure you set this to row. Okay, you set that to row. If you look in the default, you will not see that. That will not show as a row. Okay, this is what you need. So let me show you the default one. That one, Aurora MySQL, and then look for the bin. You will see that log, bin log, where you bin bin format. Default MySQL. So you don't have the bin format here. Where is that one? It's a default. Okay, so you could see we don't have that here for that, but here you can see customize DB, so bin, and you can see that you should set this to and what we call row. Okay, for the default one, it's not gonna be there. Okay, so you create your own one and attach it to that. Okay, but you know what, let's do one quickly. So let's create one, so give it a name, call it dev pg. Okay, and then it's Aurora, but we need MySQL, okay, 8.0, and then the type is the cluster parameter. That's the one you need. Okay, and then what we need to do is to create. Okay, let's give the description, copy the same thing, and then put it here. Okay, and then you create. Okay, so this is your own what we called parameter group. We are going to attach it to the existing cluster. All because you are is the setting, you are changing the setting so you can replicate, you can copy data from the source to the destination. So we go in here and then we get to edit, and like I said, what we need is a bin. What is the bin, bin log format? You see it's off. You need to set it to row. Yeah, row. That's what you need. Okay, set it to that, and then you save changes. But for now, it's just a standalone parameter group. You need to attach it to your database. Okay, so here you go to modify, and then cancel that. So you go to modify, you go all the way down, look for the cluster parameter group, not the standard or the instant parameter group, the cluster parameter group, and then you select the one you created, and then what you need to do is to go next or continue. Let's apply this immediately, and then we modify that. Okay, happy days. Once you modify, you could see it will show pending. Where is that? it will show pending. Okay, so what we need to do is to restart it or reboot this to apply the changes. All we need to do is to reboot. Okay, right, so you are preparing your source database so we'll be able to replicate it. So that is this side done. Now we're going to create our destination or the database that is earmarked for the data analytics team so they can work on that standalone. So in that case, let's go to create a database. So actually create database. Let's do full. And then again, we were using Aurora MySQL, but now we need a standalone. So let's pick MySQL, the standalone one. We scroll down and then we see dev. Okay, and what we need is just a single instance that we need. Okay, so we only copying data to this standalone. Okay, MySQL community is fine. We leave everything the way it is. So the engine version, so we need 8, similar to the source DB engine. So we pick 8.040 is fine. Any of this range should be fine. Okay, and then what else? The identifier. Okay, let's call it target. Yeah, or analytics. Let's call it target. Zero capital case. Let's call this target. Target DB actually. And then the username. Okay, let's leave the username the way it is. Okay, admin is fine. Okay, the credentials, let's set our own credentials for this. So you provide the password, the master password, and confirm that. Okay, all right. Then what we need to do here is to select, okay, that password is not miss. That should be fine. And then let's create our security group for this. So for this security group, let's pick, if you have existing security group you can use, let's use this security group. So ensure that security group you are choosing or you are going to create, if you want to connect to this DB, you need to allow the ingress to the Bastion host. Okay, pick that. The availability, no preference. Let's leave it the way it is. Let's have a quick look at the additional info. Leave the way it is. Database insight, leave the way it is. Performance, let's uncheck that. We don't need that. Enhanced monitoring, let's uncheck that. We don't need that. What else we missing? Configuration. Okay, here again, you do not need to do anything on the parameter group for this one. Encryption, you can encrypt it if you want. Okay, leave it the way it is. Backup and retention. Okay, you can uncheck that box if you don't want that. Maintenance, let's leave the maintenance window. I think the instance size is quite big for us. Let me have a look. Yeah, this is too big. Let's go for best, and then let's pick medium. It should be okay for us. Even small should be fine. Okay, let's see how much it's gonna cost. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't mean we're gonna pay this. This is like, you know, how many hours or minutes you're gonna use, then that's what you pay for. So for now, I think we are good. All we need to do is to create, okay, our DB. So this is our destination DB. Okay, cancel that. So the target is getting created. This is a standalone. This is where the data analysis team will be going to use. Okay, right. Let's wait for it to finish. While it's waiting, what we need to do is to create our replication, our replication instances. By that, we're going to leverage on the DMS. Okay, so let's look for the DMS while this is going on. While it's creating, it's going to take some time. So let's find DMS. DMS. Let's find that. And then open that one as a new tab too. Open that. Okay. So here, what we need to do is, first of all, we will create what we call the instance. So this is the main orchestration. So the EC2 instance that is going to coordinate everything, and then we create an endpoint. So we will create what we call the source endpoint and then the target endpoint. This is where we can check connectivity, whether the credential we set should work, okay, with the source and then the destination. And then we'll create the task. This is the actual orchestrator between connecting all the dots, moving the data from the source to the destination. Okay, so for now, let's create that provision, and then we say create. Move this a bit. So give it a name, say DMS instance or something. Okay, that should be fine. You can describe it if you want. That should be okay. Any name you want. Oh no, that goes here. Description, that goes in here. And then what we need is the type. Let's leave the way it is. Allocation storage, let's leave the way it is. Engine version, so currently this is the latest. Let's leave the way it is. Availability zone, let's leave it optional. Okay, you can select your own AZ. So for here, let's pick a single AZ. It's fine. And then the connectivity, IP version 4 is fine. And then our default, we're gonna provision this to a default VPC. If you have your own VPC, you can provision that into that. And the subnet, okay, again, we will pick the default subnet, and then here we can uncheck that. You don't want it to be public, you can uncheck that. You want, and then advanced settings, let's have a look what is in here. Availability zones, let's AWS give us their own availability zone. Maintenance, let's have a look. Okay, let's leave it the way it is. Auto version, minor version upgrade, let's, let them auto upgrade minor version, and then we can target. But for now, I think we are fine. We create the replication instance. Okay, so we're creating now. So whilst that is creating, we can do something else. All we need to do, come back here, we can create what we call our endpoint. Okay, so let's create our endpoint. Okay, create endpoint. So we have our source and then what we call your target endpoint. Okay, so let's have a look. So source endpoint, we can pick the source DB. Again, we know the database, so this one. okay, the one that is running the production workload. Okay, we pick the source, and then literally the details will populate here for us. So this is the endpoint name. If you don't want, you can change it to whatever you want. Okay, and then the source engine we know is Aurora MySQL. That's what we are using. So for the credentials, remember we have our own password to log into the database. This is the one you need. So it's the source database credentials. Okay, I have mine as like provided access manually. Okay, if you have it in secret, you can provide the secret ARN and so on and so forth. But for mine, it's like for test purposes, I'm using what we call the manual one. Okay, so this is the DB, my DB, the source DB. We leave everything where it is, and this is the username. I'm going to provide a password here so I can connect to the source endpoint. Okay, so this is it. Okay, enter my password. Okay, so on here, so we leave it, say none for now. Okay, if you don't have any SSL, leave that. And then the endpoint connection. So here you can either add endpoint if you want, add a certain details as much as you want. Okay, if you don't want that, you can also skip that. So use endpoint connection attribute if you want to add endpoint attributes, you can allow that. Leave the way the rest of the things are, and then what we need to do is to create endpoint. Okay, so creating the endpoint, you can also test it if you want. You can run a test whilst you connecting to it, but we will do that in a minute. So this is our replication instance, the one that is getting created. So we create endpoint. Okay, not now. Okay, so we can create the destination or the target endpoint. So again, create endpoint. For this time, we're going to create a target. This is the DB that the data analytics team are going to connect to and do their analytics stuff. Okay, build dashboard and so on and so forth. So that instance is called a target. Okay, again, it's a standalone MySQL. That's what we picked. Engine type, the password we can provide that. Okay, and this is the username, this is the password I'm going to provide to connect and do a test on the target DB. Make sure that we can establish connection to it. So let's go for it. Okay, again, let's skip that one and say none for now. So the test, again, you can leave the way this one is. We're picking our application instance and we're going to create. Okay, say no. So what we can do here is to do some test, make sure we can establish a good connection to it. So let's test our instance. We are basically connecting to the source database. Make sure that it works. Okay, say test. So that instance is not active, so we'll fix that. So that replication instance is not active yet. So see, this is still creating. That is why we having that issue. Okay, so let's wait, we'll do the test later, but for now let's go back to our database and make sure it's working fine. With the one we provision, make sure it's working all right. Okay, yeah, that is connected. So on this DB, again, there will be no data in there. We can test it and check and make sure we have no data in there. We just literally created it. Okay, so we can try and connect to it, but before you can connect, you need to make sure your bashing host is allowing an ingress to that database. Okay, so if I go in here and I go to, where is that? So this security group, I have allowed the bashing host. Okay, if I come here, I can show you quickly. Is that one? Is that the right one? Okay, yeah. Sybil SG. Where is that? Let's go to security group. Okay, and Sybil SG, that one. So what I mean is that security group is for the database, and you need to allow the bastion host to connect to it. Okay, so that bastion host or ingress, this is the bastion host security group. Okay, so I've named it Terraform EC2 security group. You see that? So to that end, I'm able to connect to it. Okay, so let me cancel that and then actually go to, where is that? Okay, go back here. It's DB. What I need to do is copy that. There will be no data in there anyway, but I just want to show you whilst the other replication instance is getting ready. So here in this bastion hole, let me exit this. So let's exit that. Exit this DB, and then I'm gonna connect to that one. Enter to the enter. Right, so this one, the one you see here, is the target one. Okay, so literally I can switch to the database call app or show DB. There will be nothing actually, so we will not even go further. So enter. Can you see we don't have the um, the database called my app? We don't have it here. Okay, we don't have it. My app is not here. Okay, so when the replication happens, we will see it in here. All right. Let's go back there, see the replication instance is up and running or not. I think it will take about, it's available now. So once it's available, let's do a check on the connection. So check the endpoint on that one. So test, hopefully that should work. Okay, let's do the test. So basically it's establishing connection from the, what is it called, the provision instance to the database, in this case our source database. Okay, just to make sure that it can connect to it, and when the data is being moved there shouldn't be any connectivity error or issue. Okay, so we can wait for that to finish. While that is going on, we can test the target too. So run the test. Okay, then let's check our endpoint. Okay, so that is successful. Okay, that test is successful on that DB, the source. The other one was the target. So the target, okay, still testing. The target is testing. Right, and the target is successful too. Right. So, all what we've done is to we had an existing source DB, no problem. We created our own DB as the target. We created replication instance. We created a source endpoint. We created a target endpoint. We've done a connection, a test connection from the endpoint just to test the endpoint. By that, I mean connection from the replication instance to the target, connection from the replication instance to the source database, and everything was a success. Yeah. So now we created the instance, we created a source, and we need to create what we call the replication task, the orchestrator, the one that is going to connect all the dots, that's going to help move data from one point to another. That's the bit we are on now. Happy so far? Nice. So let's go to yeah, the replication bit. Okay. Um, okay. And then you see we need to create a task. Okay. Then I will say create task. What task are we creating? We can call it DMS task. Okay, that should be fine. Right. So we are connecting the dot. Right. So the source, let's leave the description Amazon resource ARN. Let's leave that. The source, where is the source database? is this one, okay? Dev instance. Which one is the target? We name the database as the target DB, okay? We're connecting the dot now, yeah? So, like I said, literally, we are connecting, we are here, we are connecting the dot, the target, the source DB, we are connecting it, the target DB, we've connected that, okay? So, coming back to here again, this is what we've done. Now the task mode itself, we're doing the provision task mode. You can go serverless, but let's stick to provision one. And then the instance, so the task mode, remember we created an instance, okay? The orchestrator, we are selecting that. We're selecting this instance again. Back here we have selected this instance, the one in the green bit, yeah? Going back to where we are, that is selected. And then what we need to do, the things that we want to do, the tasks that we want to do, we want to move every data and then replicate as well. This one means migrate only. So basically we're going to load all the table, okay, to the destination, and then that's it. Nothing happens afterwards. If any changes happen in the source, it's not going to replicate it in the target DB. That is the migrate only. If you pick the migrate and replicate, it means you're going to copy the existing database, the existing data or the table, okay? And then afterwards, you continuously replicate any changes that will happen in the source. You want to move that changes continuously into the destination or the target DB. Okay, this is the one we want. Or if you want to copy just changes, but this one you don't have any existing data in the target, so what are you actually replicating? Okay, this is actually meant for data which is already has a similar database compared to the source. So what we are interested in is the migrate and replicate. Copy the existing data, and then later on, or if there's any changes, continuously monitor and replicate the changes to the target DB. That's what we selected. How long do you want it to continue? Just say indefinitely. Keep making the changes, updating the changes. So the configuration of the CDC, again, disable that, custom CDC. We don't want to stop it. We want it to continuously move on. So you say disable stop mode. Yeah, right. The setting itself, again here, so you can create recovery table, yeah. So again, have a look at the JSON format, how it looks like. You can leave the way things are now, the way it is. See full load, blah blah blah. See more details. Again, I don't want to go into this. So this is basically the settings of the task, how you want your task to behave. If you want to put up some log here, we can even change it to say, yeah, give us logs, okay. If you want to have the task on the log, you can edit that. Basically just settings for the DB, okay. Here we go, okay. So this is the JSON format and this is the actual format. So here too, you can say turn it on here, target, do nothing, or drop, and say drop table on target. If there's existing data or table in the target and you want to wipe it off and get a clean slate, you wipe it off and then have a new data in there, or you just do nothing. So don't do anything in the source or the target data. Copy the source data and put it in the target DB, or truncate it as well. So let's leave the way it is. Stop task after full load. Okay, do not stop. Okay, we don't want to stop, we want to continuously load. And again, here you can adjust and say full LOB, just basically the load everything, full one, or you can just go incrementally and say my maximum load is that one, okay. Or you can go full and just say full load, but when you're doing it for the maximum, okay, maximum load size, that the DMS transfer in line. So we have the chunk as this, so literally you can have that for this one, okay, when you're doing the full load, or you can go for the limited one. So data validation, leave that one to be off for now. or if you want, you can again validate your data on migration if you want. But let's turn that one off for now. Log. So if you want CloudWatch log, again, you can enable that. Log contest, if you want to add more log contest, but that should be fine. But now we just enable CloudWatch log on that. The one here, source, and then the target, we can leave the way everything is. So basically this is the log level. Okay, log level, what log level are you expecting? We can leave the way it is now. Okay, just information, blah blah blah, warning, let's leave the way it's as a default. Okay, leave everything the way it is. Let's have a look in the advanced what is in here. Right, again, in the advanced, let's leave everything the way it is in the advanced. Leave everything in the tuning as well. And then the table itself, okay, how do you expect your table to behave? Okay, you can add, let's say here, you can add, or you can go on the wizard and I'll show you what it means. But let's look at the JSON format. So you can literally say, right, you have this action, you want to include, what do you want to include? What schema name? Okay, basically the database name, and then the table. What was the name of the table you want to put in here? Okay, so again, similar to this, if you switch the wizard and come to select, so where is it? Okay, let me remove that first, and then we say add. Okay, so here this the schema name and then the table name. What is the name of the DB? So if you go to the Bastion host where we copy, what is the name of the DB? What is the okay? Okay, that's the name of it. Where is that? The name is called my app. Okay, that's it, my app. Okay, so that is the name. So that's the schema name. Yeah. So when we come to here, where is it? So the name, not all the table. You want to copy specific ones. Yeah, specific one. So you put that one here. If you want to copy all the table, that's where you put the percentage there. Yeah, it means all. What is the name of the table? This means all table, but we don't want to copy all table. We want to copy specific table. In this case, what is the table? The table is called users, isn't it? Yeah. Show tables. Okay, that's users. Okay, copy that. Come back here, and then what we need to do is to put a here in the schema table name. Happy so far? Okay, cooking on the gas. And what we need to do, we are including that table. So the database name, the table we want to copy, and we are including. You can add more if you want to exclude certain tables. Yeah. Let's uncheck that box. We don't want to do pre-migration assessment. That is fine. Pre-migration task startup. Right. So basically, if you want to start the task straight away, once we click create, it's going to automatically start the task. We don't want that. We want to trigger this ourselves for now. Okay. And then just have a quick once over. Make sure you are happy. DMS task, source database, target database, provision instance. We selected that. We're migrating everything and then continuously replicate. We're going to continue with this indefinitely, and then we're going to continue use CDC, and then we're setting up our not endpoint, just the task settings, and then we are also doing the table settings. Where's the table setting? Yeah, so we're setting up login to allow CloudWatch logs, and then we doing the table settings. Where is it? Yeah, table mapping. Okay, this is what we've done. So for now, I think we are not doing any transformation. If you want to transform your data whilst going through the replication, you can do that, but we are not doing that for now. All we need to do is to create task. Okay, so the task is getting created. Okay, let's give it a minute. How long is going to take? Yeah, I think so. The task is created now. All right. So if you go back to what we are doing again, we have our source database. We created an endpoint. We created an endpoint for the target database. We created the DMS, created the replication instance. We just created the task. Now the task is up and ready. All the dots has been connected. Now we want to manually trigger and start shipping data from the production database to the standalone DB. So the analytics team can go off and do the data analytics stuff. By that I mean build dashboard, do some business intelligence in there for us. Okay, so let's come here and then let's trigger that. So task, check that box, and then we're going to go action, and then we're going to start. Okay, what are we going to start? We're happy to start. Okay, so now we have triggered the replication. It's starting to move data. Let's go in here, see what we can see. Okay, now we can look at statistics and look at the table summary, the stuff that is going to happen in here. But for now, we don't have anything going on here. It's still going on. Again, if you look at the detail, we got some CloudWatch logs here. You can open that tab. So remember, we enable CloudWatch logs. We can see what is going on in detail somewhere here in the logs. If it's gonna open, it's taking its time, isn't it? All right, come on, logs. Our life depends on you. Our troubleshooting life depends on you. Come on, that's it. That's it. Keep coming. Right. Okay. So now we can see it's logging all the activity that is happening. Okay, it's logging in there. But let's look at it. If the replication has completed or is still loading the data. Okay, so load completed. Let's look at the table. Now can you see we got that? So that is the schema name, the table, okay, and it just loaded the stuff. So now if we go right, if you go to the Bastion host connect to that DB, and then we've trying to find that DB, use the DB again, show DB. Now can you see we got this DB with a name? Previously we did that and then it wasn't there. Sorry, we got my app. Now you can see we got my app here. Okay, so I can say use, what is the command? So show DB, use show DB, and then use, okay, then use the DB. Just want to list all the data in there just to show you it has replicated. Remember, we are inside of the target DB. Okay, now we use that. What's next? Okay, let's select everything, copy that, and then put it here, enter. Okay, can you see this is the same info? So this will have a continuous replication unless you pause or do something with a replication. It will continue. Okay, this replication, where is that? Come on, data migration. Right. Okay, yeah. So this will continue to replicate. Load at the load has finished, but the CDC will continue. When you are making changes to the source, it will be replicated into the destination. We can even try that if you want to switch. Okay, but for now, I hope this will help somebody out there. You have your events here again. You can have a look when things were starting. So I hope this helps somebody out there. So the scenario was you have your data analysis team who want to have access to your production database for them to do what we call like business intelligence analysis, and then also build some dashboard for your business. And then the access, you want them to have an isolation. You don't want them to constantly be pulling from your production database, so you created a separate database and then you leverage on what we call AWS data migration service to copy or replicate data from your production database to the standalone. And that standalone is the one dedicated for your analytics team. The data is a replica of what is in production. And now everything is cooking on the gas. I hope this helps somebody out there. If you want me to touch on any specific video, I'm happy to do it. I've done a separate video on that one, was basically for Postgres, but this one was MySQL. The difference, they are the same. The difference is that for Postgres, for the replication to happen from the source DB, you need to allow what we call logical replication in the parameter group. Okay. But for MySQL, you need to allow what we call bin log format. And after that, you are set. I hope this helped. See you in my next video. Happy learning. Bye bye.